Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 103 of the Ron and Brian podcast. I am Ron, as always, joined by the winner of the New York Democratic presidential primary, Brian. Brian, congratulations. A little applause, my friend. After they canceled the primary in your state, seemed like there was nothing else to do but declare you the winner. So where do you go from here?
First, we're going to go on to Ohio. Then we're going to go to Pennsylvania.
All right.
We're going to do New Hampshire, Vermont, Texas, California. Woo!
Woo! What's your main platform? Talk to me.
Platform is this. We're going to tax the wealthy. We are going to redistribute wealth. We are going to make Pornhub Premium free.
I like where you're going with these. I think these are things people can get behind.
We are going to criminalize alcohol, but decriminalize heroin.
Interesting.
And I guarantee you that half of my cabinet will be women.
Nice. What about your running mate? Have you given any thought to that?
My running mate is someone who is out there that has not been exposed yet. And when I say exposed, I mean for the terrible things that they have said on Twitter.
I mean, any hints perhaps in your background picture as to who your running mate may be?
Well, I think it's clear I am not racist.
All right, fantastic. Thoughts on, since we're talking presidential stuff real quick, thoughts on Justin Amash considering a third party run?
I would love to have some thoughts. I don't know who Justin Amash is.
He's a congressman.
Is he Amish?
He is not. He was Republican, but he was very outspoken in his critique of President Trump, became an independent, and now he's contemplating a third-party run, which a lot of people feel could potentially hurt Joe Biden and help Donald Trump. So it'll be interesting to see if he actually goes through with it.
What's your take on third-party candidates?
I'm very torn because I feel that the country needs more than two political parties, but there are a number of instances where, third-party candidates, hurt. It seems primarily Democratic candidates and really helps the Republican Party. So, a lot of people feel Justin Amash would do that. I know Jesse Ventura is doing an exploratory campaign about running as the Green Party candidate for president. What I would like to see happen in the next 4 years is more political parties gain power versus just Democrats and Republicans. And so that, maybe in 4 years, in 2024, it's a more even playing field with some political parties maybe gaining some traction. Maybe even the Libertarian Party. You never know.
Listen, I think we know exactly where my political beliefs lay, and I don't even know where they are. But I do firmly believe that there is more than enough justification for there to be more than two parties, and I think that the argument of don't vote for a third party candidate because it's splitting the vote, I think that's horseshit, because all that's doing is ensuring that the established two parties remain in power.
That's a very good point. I mean, clearly the way the political system is rigged, these parties need to hit certain percentages of the electorate to, get on to ballots and things of that nature. I don't think it's an easy answer. I don't think this is the right year, because obviously we have, someone in the White House that is really destroying the country, literally destroying the American people. So let's maybe punt for right now and come back in 22 or 24. Yes, sir.
Ron, only 60,000 Americans have died of coronavirus, and I don't think it's fair for you to put that on Donald Trump's doorstep and saying that he's responsible for that.
Who are you saying might be responsible?
I think the American people are no. I don't think. I actually think Donald Trump is
I
incredibly responsible for this, but I do think that there is, there's blame on the global scale. I personally think that there should be a day of reckoning for China for the fact that they don't have their shit together. They're a disaster. I think that um, I think we as a globe have erred in allowing China to become our manufacturing hub.
Hmm.
We all seem to have enjoyed the cheap products that they make. Your iPhone, your headphones, your Yeti microphone, your MacBook, your other MacBook, your still yet to be purchased third MacBook. But it's just the idea that, like, when they go down, the ripple effect is astonishing. And I just think that that they've got some blame in underreporting this, in just their fucking wet markets with the eating of the bats and all that kind of shit. There's got to be something done so that we don't have to do this again.
All right, sounds good. Well, in the meantime, why don't you and I kick back with a nice drink?
Drink of the week.
Na zdrowie!
Drink of the week. Pleasure.
Drink of the week. Drink of the week. Drink of the week.
Well,
Drink of the week.
some sad news for drink of the week. As our loyal listeners know, we had hired an intern to run the drink of the week poll. You'll notice again, no poll again this week. A few weeks back, he experimented with the hydroxychloroquine, and survived that, but then got a meal from the wet market. Not good for his intestinal system. Got accidentally deported by our medical insurance company. We snuck him back in through an El Guapo tunnel, got him back in the country. He was putting together some cocktail suggestions this week, and was testing out some cocktails with Clorox and Pine Sol. And well, that finally killed him. So number one, we have an opening for intern position, which, Brian, I don't think I'm going to let you make the hiring decision this time, because I don't think that kid was as bright as you pawned him off to be.
Listen, he wasn't very bright, but he did great on the casting couch.
Well, that certainly explains a lot. So we will attempt to get the poll going again next week. Brian, what are you drinking this week? It's hard to tell because with this new background on Zoom, it's fading in and out. Is it a rum and Coke?
How did you guess?
You're a very go-to kind of guy. If it's not whiskey, it's usually a rum and Coke.
But I haven't had a rum and Coke in probably a year.
I don't know about that. Well, no, it's Jack and Coke.
I always go Jack and Coke because I've got some sexual orientation issues. But this week I was like, fuck it, let's go rum. And I remembered I'm not that much of a rum fan.
All right.
It's very sweet. Very sweet.
All right.
Sweet.
Maybe you should try the spiced rum. Maybe the Kraken rum. That's got a nice little bite to it.
What is Kraken rum?
It's a dark spiced rum.
You know that I like my dark spicy.
That's true. So I am drinking. I got some beers delivered this week by another local brewery. This from the Neshaminy Creek Brewing Company. This is their John, their American Pale Ale. John standing for Juicy Ale with Nugget. Not quite sure why.
I don't understand the nugget part. Are there chicken nuggets inside?
I don't know, but I think they just needed the end to get the John so they could get the Philly reference in there. But very good for an American Pale Ale. Very nice.
What is the John Philly reference?
John is a Philly phrase. You can use John as anything. Like, look at that John over there.
So it's a person?
No, not necessarily. Can be anything.
I'm not understanding.
It's way too common. It's kind of like it's almost like aloha means hello and goodbye in Hawaii. Like John can have many different meanings.
Okay, you used one where it was referencing a person over there. Can you give me another example that shows that it can be used for something else?
I'm going over to that John there. Like, pick me up one of them Johns.
Okay, I guess it's a Philly thing, like water.
It is a Philly thing, like water, like hoagies. No
Hoagies.
one says hoagie better than you say it. Can you say it one more time for me?
Hoagie.
All right, let's move on to some racism.
This
Week.
In
racism.
racism. Racism.
Oh, and what a beatdown we saw this week. The tandem of Stephanie Freeman and Jeffrey Hume knocking off defending champ Ricky Forbito 96% to 4%. Not only that, they rang up the highest 1 week vote total ever in the history of This Week in Racism. Brian, your thoughts?
Gold. Gold, Ron. They are gold. The thing that makes this tandem of racists so powerful is their utter lack of anger. And I think that during the coronavirus pandemic, people are looking to, get away from threatening rants. They're looking for things that are more comforting. And when you bring these two racists to the table, magic happens. I mean, they're combining the hip, young TikTok style of videotaping with the hardcore racism of your grandparents. It's got everything.
You know, racists used to really prefer Snapchat as their video venue, but now we're seeing more and more racism on TikTok. What do you think is causing that shift? And what can Snapchat do to get back into the racism game?
I think Snapchat has to start offering some new, cooler filters, such as maybe an Adolf Hitler filter, maybe a Ku Klux Klan filter, where you sit there and you got the big fucking robe on top
right.
with the little cap. Like maybe something that can just that can connect racism with the type of technology that they want to use.
I mean, what about bringing maybe like David Duke on as a sponsor?
I don't think that these kids are attracted by sponsors. These kids want to be the influencers themselves, not be influenced.
See, this is why I ask you, because you bring a perspective to the table that I don't think many people would have. So, all right.
Thank you.
Not a ton of racism this week. We had a few stories, nothing competitive enough for our champions, especially since they really are juggernauts. Like, someone is going to have to do something ridiculously racist to even compete with them. So we are going to send them to the bench this week so they can work on more racist TikTok videos while we search for some competitors. And in the meantime, we're going to air some beefs.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
All right, Brian, what's bothering you this week?
The premature reopening of America.
Okay, anywhere in particular or just across the board?
You got Georgia, bowling alleys. For some reason, 2 months into a global pandemic, it's Georgia decides that they need to reopen so bowling alleys can be open for business. Florida, we need to have everybody running to the beach. California, the Kardashians, fucking A. And the Orthodox Jews in Brooklyn, New York.
Just Brooklyn or all over New York?
Wherever the Orthodox Jews go, I don't really follow them that closely.
Because Mayor de Blasio seemed to call out all Jews the other day on Twitter.
Oh, no, that was me. I retweeted and edited some of his comments in the tweet. What he said was there are certain people, and I just took that out to all Jews.
Okay.
We are in the middle of a global pandemic. We have been socially distancing ourselves for, what was it, about 6 to 7 weeks at this point?
About that, yeah.
And at least in New York City, we have flattened the curve. You know, yesterday I think we had about 300 and some odd people die in one day. Normally, that should be news, but that is a quarter of where we were about a month ago. So socially distancing has saved lives. And it is amazing how over the past week and a half, these liberate the states protests have gone on, and the governments are caving in right now to ensure that the people can get haircuts. When you can see, I'm doing just fine without one.
I am getting a little long up top. Might have to make a trip down to Georgia, get myself a cut.
I thought you were going to say, a hot spot in South Philly where you can go and get a fade and a shape up.
Oh yeah, I do. If only they were open. Yeah, I was reading now that the models are showing that they anticipate Georgia's death rate to jump by like 5 or 6 times now with these relaxed rules that they have.
I feel bad for those that are staying at home and are going to get sick, but anybody who's fighting to liberate their state, I hope that I hope that they meet a fate that is worthy of the behavior that they're displaying right now.
Yeah, and again, we don't want to necessarily wish harm upon anyone, but one person that I would like to see harm come to, this isn't my beef, I'm just kind of piggybacking off of yours, is this woman down in North Carolina, Audrey Whitlock. She is one of the organizers of Reopen North Carolina, who has tested positive for coronavirus and is still attending these protests to reopen her state. Not masked, not social distancing, clearly out there potentially infecting more people.
I thought that she was self-isolating because she got sick.
She said she was going to self-isolate, and then she was seen at a protest the other day.
What a bitch. I swear to God. Are you kidding me?
I kid you not, unless the media is lying to me, which I hope not.
Because I saw the story as, here's your fucking irony right up your Karen ass. You've got this white woman who's sitting there saying, open the states. And then she comes down with coronavirus. Now she's self-isolating, but she's back out.
That is what I've read.
If that's true, fuck this woman. Fuck her so hard. I hope her kidneys fail. Speaking of which, what is your beef?
My beef, and again, it's not, I feel bad having this particular beef because it's not as significant as your beef reopening the country. But the availability or lack thereof of spices when I go to the supermarket is a problem. Garlic powder, Italian seasoning, like I got the toilet paper and milk and eggs, but did white people all of a sudden decide they needed to start seasoning their food during this pandemic? I've never had an issue finding spices and herbs as much as I have. I'm getting them shipped now. I mean, I almost had to call the wet market and have them ship me some spices.
Well, I think what's going on is that because everybody is home, they are cooking more, whereas people were eating out more. So I think that you've got a lot of people with some free time on their hands, so they're spending more time in the kitchen. And what they are not respecting the code of the supermarket, which is let Ron of the Ron and Brian podcast get everything he wants, and then everybody else can just settle with his crumbs.
Listen, I don't need everything. I'm fine. I can't get yeast. I can't bake my own bread. All right, fine. But you know me, I take my cooking level to my cooking game to the next level.
Listen,
I don't screw around.
There's, I'm not telling you right now that you should go to the Ron Brian podcast Instagram page right now to see what appears to be a chicken pizza. Was I correct on that?
It was a creamy chicken Alfredo keto pizza.
What made it a keto pizza?
The dough. I used a keto recipe to make the pizza dough.
And how is that keto diet going for you, Ron?
It's not for me. It's for my wife. I am just gaining weight because I'm eating the full fat things like a creamy Alfredo chicken, which the crust is just basically mozzarella cheese and cream cheese mixed with almond flour.
Yeah, we've spoken about this. I don't understand almond flour. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand the concept of how you can take a nut and squeeze it, and you've got milk, but somehow if you dry it afterwards, you've got fucking flour to bake in. It doesn't make sense to me. But apparently you're happy with it.
I mean, almond flour, coconut flour. We blew your mind with the cricket flour too.
That was fucked and wrong on so many different levels. Fucking crickets. No, absolutely not. But I do believe that, yeah, I mean, what do you think about there's been a lot of stories in the news this past week about the food supply and the issues that we're going to be having. You've got stories of farmers who are literally throwing out their product because they cannot get it to market, while you've got people lining up in food banks.
Yeah, it's I mean, one thing that I think this whole pandemic has really shown is it's shown our enemies how to really attack our country. Like, everyone was like, oh, it'll be a cyber attack, it'll be an attack on the power grid. No, people are now seeing how tenuous our healthcare system is, our food delivery systems, our hospitals, our healthcare, our finances. And yeah, it did not take a lot to really, throw the food chain off. And again, with all this money that we are throwing at different industries, rather than try and figure out ways to help business, why not spend some of that money to get this food that's being destroyed in different areas of the country out to the different food banks that need it? I mean, you've got food banks trying to hand out food to people, and people are lining up for miles, sitting in their cars for hours trying to get food. And then in other parts of the country, you've got farmers destroying product, farmers killing their livestock so they don't produce more.
And in a third area, you've got suburban white cis males who are complaining because they can't get oregano and Italian seasoning.
Listen, I'm not saying that the spices is a big issue, but I mean, I think people not being able to get the basics, is a big challenge. How are you going to address that as president?
How am I going to address it? Easily. I'm going to take some of the money that is going to come in from the taxing of the 1%. And what we're going to do is we are going to buy the food from the farmers. And it is a tremendous amount of food. It's beautiful food, great food. American farmers, they grow the most beautiful, tremendous food. They've got vegetables and Chick-fil-A sandwiches, and we're going to purchase it directly from the farmers, and we're going to spray some disinfectant on top of it, and then we're going to get it delivered to the people that need it. And we are going to, we got the best American minds working on it, Ron.
Seems like a solid plan to me. In the meantime, we saw this come out earlier, how the pork industry sent out some updated guidance to pork producers as to how they listed as depopulation methods, but obviously it's a way for these pork producers, if necessary, to get rid of pigs if they're not going to use the food because their orders are down. And it's just really a wild west on this thing. So preferred methods: gunshot, non-penetrating captive bolt, penetrating captive bolt, electrocution, manual blunt force trauma, movement to slaughter, which I'm not quite sure what that is.
Is that like a political movement?
I guess.
Or is that like a bowel movement?
I don't know. Carbon dioxide or anesthetic overdose. Now, you have these three are permitted in constrained circumstances. Ventilation shutdown plus, which I guess they just
suffocate,
cut off the air. Sodium nitrate, and then compounded or non-pharmaceutical grade injectable anesthetics and euthanasia agents. As
the
far
fuck
as
is that?
I guess if you've got any kind of drug lying around that can kill an animal, you're fine. And then under not recommended, none listed. So it's really just the Wild West in the pork industry right now. Anything can be allowed to be killed. Your
It's a
thoughts?
lot of bacon.
A lot of bacon, a lot of pork loin, a lot of pulled pork.
That's a shame. It's you know, I don't know. You know, one of the things that I think of is, you know, maybe as a result of all this, we start moving to a more non-animal generated diet.
So just kind of a plant-based society.
Maybe not fully, but something where we kind of eliminate the whack ass animals that people in Asia are eating. But at least I do believe there's something fucking wrong with the industrial farming that goes on. With
Are you saying you don't want to kill that pig that you have in your apartment?
Well, I have to. I mean, I can't get it to market properly.
I mean, he's very cute.
Not now, Porky. Not now. Sit. Sit.
So what of the preferred methods were you going to choose?
Electrocution?
Electrocution? All right. I mean, I guess you could just yank a cord out of your light right there.
I'm going to yank anything over here. It's going to be right behind me.
All right, you ready to hit your pig there?
Let's electrocute Porky.
Oh.
Can you smell the sizzle?
You can. Even from here, I can.
That's good stuff.
That's just in poor taste. Can't
what if I had decided I wanted to shotgun Porky?
You could have done that as well. Or you could have given him the old axe to the head. Or just
So juicy.
Just beating him to death. In fact, this is also what it will sound like in Brian's room later tonight. Sorry.
Possibly.
Could be. So Brian,
there will be a wide range of noises coming out. You know, you can't really predict what they are.
So breaking news in the continuing coronavirus situation. Brian, you shared this with me earlier. Apparently, there are a bunch of bodies at a funeral home in Brooklyn, which normally would not be surprising. But I guess the storage is kind of wanting right now.
Here's the issue. New York City is ground zero, and not ground zero World Trade Center 9/11, but ground zero coronavirus in America, which is, I think, one of the reasons why the Republicans don't give a shit about coronavirus right now, is the fact that New Yorkers are the ones dying from it. Blue votes. They, they see it as a good thing, but that's neither here nor there. My point is the fact that, a couple weeks ago, we had, basically accepted that the funeral industry in New York City was at their capacity. And what do you do when you hit capacity and you continue? Well, unlike the waistline of your jeans, you can't go out and just go out and buy a bigger size. So what have we been doing in New York? Refrigerated trucks parked outside of hospitals being fed body bags by pitchforks. Well, suddenly today in Brooklyn, in the Flatlands area of Brooklyn, over on Utica Avenue, the residents of the neighborhood complained to the Department of Health about foul odors coming from U-Haul trucks parked outside of a funeral home. And when they show up, what do they find?
Refrigerated trucks?
No, these were not refrigerated trucks. These were just regular U-Hauls packed with dozens of bodies.
So how many bodies can you fit into a U-Haul? Just out of curiosity.
Multiple sizes. I'm going to say if you're going with your standard smaller U-Haul, like the size used in the original 9/11 bombing, World Trade Center bombing, that is, you probably could store about 40 or 50 in each one. Depending on how obese.
Right.
If the people are obese, then you're not going to be able to.
What was surprising to me, hold on, I'm just going to crack open another John here.
You knocked out that first one already?
I did. Yeah, there's just like 12-ounce cans. There's not a lot there.
My
It's only like a
goodness,
few.
Ronald.
Yeah, I'm getting drunk tonight.
Listen, I'm not going to tell you that I'm encouraging you to drink more, but I will say that last week's episode of Patreon was, in my opinion, one of our best because you, sir, were in a very loose mood.
I was shot out of a cannon. And you all can hear that if you go to ronandbrianpodcast.com. Upper right-hand corner is where you can click to become a patron. But what was really surprising about this story is like all the businesses that around this funeral home, when the New York Post interviewed, they were like, oh yeah, this has been going on for weeks. So like everyone around the funeral home seemed to know what was going on, and no one ever bothered to, notify the authorities, say anything, get involved.
I think that we all can accept that these are crazy, wild times.
Yeah.
And, sometimes, if you go to the supermarket, you may have to wait online outside. Like this was unheard of just 2 months ago. Sometimes, if you're walking down the street, and you're outside, you need to wear some type of a facial mask or a covering of some type. This was unheard of 2 months ago, and we've all accepted it. So maybe U-Hauls now are just meant to hold decaying human remains, and it's just something we're going to have to accept.
I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see if U-Haul works that into an advertising campaign of some sort. But I feel at the very least they're not going to get their security deposit backs on those trucks, because it's tough to get that cadaver smell out of there.
Well, what they said was that there was blood leaking out of the U-Hauls when they were taking the bodies out.
That's going to be a mess.
Well, those are also room temperature decaying human remains. Like there is absolutely no way that is going to be a fun sight. What I'm surprised is that there has not been any leaked photos.
Right. I mean, even the photos were on the New York Post article were relatively tame versus some of the video of the forklifts putting bodies into the refrigerated trucks that we saw weeks ago. And kudos to you for going almost a half hour into this podcast before making your first mention of the refrigerated trucks.
I think this week we're going to have an under. I think the U-Haul stuffed with warm human remains, I think that is going to be, that may become the new pitchforks feeding refrigerated trucks.
All right. You know what was the big, I think, injustice that people were fighting about online this week? And besides that, the usual, I made a note to ask you your thoughts on the Blue Angels flyovers that were taking place in the Northeast this week. Because there was online, there was a very clear line in the sand drawn between the people that thought it was fantastic that the Blue Angels were doing this and people that were saying, how much PPE and things like that could be purchased for hospitals and ventilators and whatnot with the money that is thrown at the Blue Angels. Where do you fall in this particular battle?
I'm on the side of whatever monies were spent on that could have been spent on a better purpose. And at the end of the day, it's, I would like to think that we've got bigger battles to fight right now than whether, the Navy sends their Blue Angels. I did see them out my window.
Oh, very nice.
As they were, underwhelming, they just kind of like went by and it's just like, okay, we got it.
I heard them. I was working in my basement when they flew overhead, and it sounds much more impressive than it looks. Like you could literally, like the house rattled a little bit as they flew over.
Are you sure that wasn't your wife getting hungry because you hadn't made lunch yet?
Very possible. If I don't make her tomato and mozzarella salad at lunch, she hits me.
And I can make that joke because I know she doesn't listen to the podcast.
That is true. That is true. But she will ask me where to find other podcasts that she wants to listen to.
What?
She wanted to listen to the Property Brothers podcast because apparently one of them is dating Zooey Deschanel now. So she wanted to hear how the two of them met, which apparently was talked on in the latest episode of whatever podcast that is.
And she doesn't listen to us.
Doesn't listen to us, but that's one she wanted to hunt down and find.
Okay. Next time she wants one of her tomato and mozzarella salad, do me a favor. do me a favor. Do not put any Italian seasoning in that salad.
See, I don't do Italian seasoning. That's just some olive oil, some 18-year-old balsamic vinegar, and a little salt and pepper. I keep it pure, Brian.
You are such a bougie bitch. I swear to God.
Why? How old is your balsamic vinegar, Brian?
I have no idea. I can go check if you want me to, but
That's okay.
I can guarantee you it's not 18 years.
Well, you don't know what you're missing.
No, not at all.
So again, the coronavirus obviously keeps beating away at the country. We have talked about churches and the coronavirus and how churches, some are continuing to hold services, large gatherings, things of that nature. There was a very interesting article on The Independent this week by Alex Woodward talking about how as many as 30 church leaders from the nation's largest African-American Pentecostal denomination have confirmed to have died in this outbreak due to what they believe is catching the coronavirus because they were continuing to hold these gatherings. Deaths across the U.S. in areas where the Church of God in Christ has a presence. Some have come from funerals, some have come from meetings amongst the clergy, and some have come from continuing to have services that they're requiring their parishioners to attend. We keep talking about this, Brian. How many people in religious organizations need to die before these guys come around and realize what they're doing?
Apparently, there is no number. Apparently, it is. Well, think about it. How many lives have been lost in the name of religion over the thousands of years that humanity has been in existence?
Too many.
Why is there any reason to believe that now that should stop?
Yeah. And I think what's driving me even crazier is now you have these pastors saying, well, you can't come in person, but you're getting those stimulus checks. So just go on our website and send me that stimulus check. And our good friend Kenneth Copeland, he was telling people, make sure you still tithe even if you can't show up in person. And Jim Baker, who now cannot accept credit card payments because of his coronavirus cure that he was hawking, is just asking people just to send him checks for like $80 so he doesn't go bankrupt.
Are we talking about the same Jim Baker from Jessica Hondays?
Oh, we are.
Tammy Faye Baker?
Oh, yeah.
That dude is still trying to do religion even after, he got his secretary.
He's selling buckets of food. He's selling coronavirus cures. He is like Alex Jones level religious fanatic now.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Good for him.
Listen, U.S. loves a comeback. No one loves it better than America.
There is a sucker born every minute. And if you look around the room and you can't figure out the sucker, you're the sucker.
It's like a
Jim
line
Baker
from Rounders.
Yeah, basically it was. I was quoting Rounders.
I just
as opposed to Die Hard, which I had a good 5-week run of quoting Hans Gruber every week.
Now that Hans is out, you're back to doing Rounders, which Rounders was a highly unappreciated movie, if I can say that.
An amazing movie ruined by John Malkovich's bad Russian accent.
Really? Part of what makes it for me is his character is so fucking over the top.
It's so over the top, but I just have to believe that John Malkovich could do a better Russian accent. Chick, 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 all night long, you chick, chick, he trapped me. Like, it was terrible.
Money.
It was awful.
just chewing scenery up, scene after scene.
I feel so unsatisfied. It was terrible. The accent is terrible. Everything about that movie is literally like Oscar level. Matt Damon is incredible.
With your own money.
Chick, chick, chick. What you fool? That is a monster hat. Beam. Like, oh, terrible.
Maybe we'll do a Rounders watch party for Ron and Brian fans.
How much can we charge? Like $1, $2,
I think that
$5?
might be illegal, but we'll see what we can do.
Well, it's not the rounders that people are paying for. They can join. They can watch rounders for free. It's the ability to watch it with us.
I understand. I like the fact that you're always, looking at those angles.
Ron, these are unprecedented times.
They are. Can I tell you what else? And this wasn't quite a beef of the week, but
Sure.
Since we're talking about coronavirus yet again, and trust me, both Brian and I long for the day when we don't have to talk about coronavirus anymore. But this is our lives right now. It's why we look the way we do. I saw a video online this past week, and it's a lot of crap out there about people, not pro coronavirus, but pro quarantining, other people saying we got to open things back up. And it was one of these, overly hyped titled videos like COVID-19 bombshell and everything like that. And it was this medical doctor making what I guess he felt was the genius statement that healthy people don't need to quarantine. And it's like, yeah, that's
what?
Right. I know what, but the problem is that being a healthy person at this point with the coronavirus it's a very limited proposition. And it's the same thing like we saw Mike Pence go to the Mayo Clinic the other day, and he was the one jackass in the room not wearing the mask. And his excuse to that was, well, I don't have the coronavirus. I got tested and I didn't have the coronavirus. And, being tested, being quote unquote healthy, like it's that moment in time. Like, yes, when you were tested, you didn't have coronavirus. You were healthy. If you don't have symptoms right now, maybe you're healthy, maybe you're not. But, one of the things that is so devastating about this disease, and the reason it has spread so much and that we've exceeded 1 million cases in this country, is you can go up to 2 weeks having the disease, not showing any symptoms, and spreading the disease to other people. Or if you're asymptomatic, you could just be constantly spreading that without ever getting sick yourself. You look at MERS, SARS, Ebola, part of the reason that they didn't spread as much was because, number one, you couldn't spread the disease until you started showing symptoms. And the symptoms usually came on so quickly and were so severe that people were bedridden and were being put out into, weren't able to go out and spread it amongst people. But now you've got this coronavirus where, again, I could have, I had to go to the supermarket the other week to pick some things up. Yes, I had my mask, I had my gloves, but, I could have picked it up and I could be saying today I'm healthy, but in 2 or 3 days I could be sick. And
you may not be healthy.
Right. In the meantime, who am I impacting? So it's a case of healthy people have to quarantine because A, you don't know you don't know if you're healthy, and B, you don't know who else is healthy. The other big thing people need to keep in mind is listening to medical doctors versus listening to science doctors on this issue. You have to be very careful because medical doctors know how to treat symptoms. Your immunologists, your doctors of science can tell you how these diseases transmit and how they handle. Dr. Fauci is a science doctor. He works in immunology. He is the perfect person to say so. A medical doctor who, by the way, works for a testing company who I'm sure profits have been impacted because people aren't having as many medical procedures, and half their business is now coronavirus testing, which is not being reimbursed at a high level by the health insurance company. So you've got a medical doctor whose livelihood is being impacted saying we need to go back to normal as quickly as possible. So, when people are out there on social media spreading this kind of information around, consider the source and consider the impact it may have. Like a majority of the population, I'm going to let you get in here a second, Brian, don't worry. A bulk of the population of this country, when Donald Trump said, maybe shooting disinfectant into bodies is a good way to cure it, most of us in the country are like, well, he's a fucking idiot, and I would never do that. But yet you are already seeing story after story of areas, New York City, Illinois, Iowa, where the cases of people ingesting disinfectants doubled, tripled, quadrupled. There was a case of 2 guys who died drinking Clorox because they didn't want to get coronavirus. So you've got people in this country that are very susceptible to information that they get from sources that maybe they shouldn't be listening to. And I think everyone, regardless of the topic, needs to think more about that before they share information on their social media or share it with their friends or put it out there. That's what really is killing this country. That's just my rant for today.
It's not, I think the comment of it's killing this country is I think that's your passion coming through. I think that I think one of the issues that we have going on right now in this country, and we've had it for a while, is that we've got a segment of society that listens to experts to make recommendations, and they want to follow the experts regardless, whatever the area of expertise is. Let's find the people who know the most about this, and let's take their recommendations. And then you also have the people that like to go with their gut. And those are the people who will sit there and say, I don't think that we need to quarantine ourselves. And what they do is they go out looking for information that will reiterate their already established viewpoint. And it's not necessarily experts who are giving these opinions, but they are purporting themselves as an official on whatever the issue is. So when someone's sitting there putting up on Facebook, hey, look, here's a video by a doctor, like you said earlier, this person's opinion on this issue may not be one that we should base our social actions upon. You work in the hospitality industry, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I would take your opinion on what's the best thread count for my sheets.
Right. Or, if you had something wrong with your throat, would you go to your dentist? All right, yeah, my dentist.
No, I would just tell my boyfriend to stop pulling out. What?
But, and I think you nailed it. It's like, people look for information that validates their viewpoint rather than looking for information that challenges their viewpoint.
Some people, not everyone.
Not everyone, but a growing portion of the population.
There is this growing divide into, I do not agree with this person on A and B, so therefore I have to disagree with them on C and D.
I think back to the documentary.
Putin's winning. Putin is fucking winning this.
Back in the documentary we watched a while back about the flat earthers, like one of the points that someone made who was against the flat earthers was like, they're claiming that they're doing science and doing scientific experiments, but they're altering their experiments to get they have the answer, and they're changing the experiment to get the answer they want, rather than doing an experiment and finding out what the answer is. And that's, I think, what is happening with the growing portion of the population is people have their minds made up, so they're only going to search for that information that validates their mindset, and anything else is fake news, it's conspiracy theory, it's being liberal, it's being conservative, it's whatever, anything that goes against that person's mindset, they're going to find a way to discount.
I had somebody on Facebook this past week tell me that our government is becoming tyrannical in ordering unnecessary stay-at-home orders, that their liberties are being taken away, and we are now living under tyranny. And I was like, but there's 60,000 people have died in a month and a half. But is shutting
down the economy worth those 60,000 lives, Brian?
I don't know, which is why I look to people that are experts who will fucking answer those questions for me. I'm looking to a governor of New York who's trying to balance public health versus the economy. Like, whereas in other states like Florida, you've got a governor, DeSantis, who's sitting there saying, well, it's okay if the elderly pass away in Florida because we are heaven's waiting room.
Let me ask you something. Speaking of DeSantis, is there someone in politics who looks more like a mouth breather than DeSantis? Like
Devin Nunes.
He always has a
Ted
look
Cruz.
on his face like he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
Riley Reid. I mean, I could name so many different politicians.
It was rhetorical. It was rhetorical.
Oh, sorry. I thought you actually were looking for names. Sorry. Never mind.
But yeah, I mean, it's 60,000, but the only thing that's kept it from being in the hundreds of thousands or millions is the steps that have been put in place over the last 6 months. And listen, I don't like it. I wish I was still employed. You know, I wish the people that worked under me for 10 years that I had to lay off before I was laid off were still employed. I wish my brother's bars and restaurants could reopen, and that he could put his employees back to work. You know, I wish my mother could come visit. You know, these are all things that aren't happening. And, you know, we all want our lives to go back to normal, but not at the cost.
At what cost?
Not at the cost of human lives.
Correct.
I mean, you know, think about it. This disease killed in 1 month what the flu kills in 6 months with all of the quarantine and restrictions in place.
We passed the death toll of the Vietnam War to American soldiers yesterday. We did it in a month and a half.
Right.
Vietnam War was what, a decade?
I mean, they're even counting that death count even counted up till now, because they still count the people that die of Agent Orange and things of that nature as part of the
POWs, MIAs. We remember. We will not forget you.
Yeah, but the bulk of the deaths were in that 5 to 10.
I saw Rambo
period.
3. What?
Yes,
I'm
you
sorry.
did. And
No, but it's like what?
You watched the new Rambo? It's on Amazon Prime.
No, I added it to my list, but I just didn't. I couldn't do it.
I digress. You're about to say something.
I was going to say, Ron, what are you watching?
But speaking of what we're watching, so you and I both watched the Beastie Boys documentary on Apple TV, which was based on the live show they did last April in New York City. I liked it. You know, I know you said it was kind of just a rehash of the Beastie Boys book, which I had not read. So this to me was all kind of new. There was a lot of information in there that I didn't necessarily know. I didn't realize that Rick Rubin, they kind of discovered each other, the Beastie Boys and Rick Rubin.
Oh my God.
I didn't know that.
Like,
Mike
did you
Hughes
get
did such a bad Russell Simmons impersonation?
Did you discover the Beastie Boys like during Check Your Head? Like, is that when like Ron got hip to the Beastie Boys when he's like, you know, I like those guys, you know.
Listen, listen, I like all high school kids my age back in the late 80s, you know, listened to License to Ill, but, didn't realize, once I found out who Rick Rubin was, didn't realize the connection.
You didn't know your history.
I didn't. And it was a good thing that I learned.
I felt that the Beastie Boys, okay, first off, it's coming in at 2 hours.
It's a long documentary.
And yet I felt that they spent too much time in our youth and how we got together. And they skipped over the part of their last couple albums. Like, they didn't even mention the mix-up. They didn't mention the, what was the Committee Volume 3? They came out with an instrumental.
Thank you. Tell me I don't know my history.
Well, fuck, bitch.
Bitch.
But like, they spent so much time talking about like them getting their first band together.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I get it. You weren't always hip hop fans. You listen to hardcore and punk music, great. But I felt like there were, it just felt like once they became superstars, like after Check Your Head came out, it really felt like they're like, okay, there's like, we got 10 more minutes. So, let's just kind of jam a couple things in and then move on. Like
And
it
that's
just
what I was wondering, because like by the time they got through Paul's Boutique, you're an hour and a half into this, and I'm like, well, it's a lot of shit they got to cram into, and then they really just do like this time jump at the end from their last show to Adam Yauch passing away, and it's like, what the hell happened in between? So I mean, even though it was long, to your point, I think there was more that they could have covered.
right. Absolutely.
What's interesting is you look at some of these documentaries that are limited edition series that have like 5 or 6 episodes, and they really could be done in 2 or 3 episodes. Meanwhile, here's a 2-hour documentary that might have worked better as a 5 or 6 episode documentary. Like I would have
Right.
watched, if I could have broken it up, I would have watched 6 hours of it, because I'm sure there's
Absolutely.
fascinating stories for each of them. So overall, it was good. Could have been better.
It also, and this just may be my little critique, it felt like they were trying to battle between putting together a historical retrospective of the Beastie Boys and a love letter to MCA Adam Yauch.
Yeah. Well,
Like it was almost like they would walk down this path for a while, and then they'd be like, oh yeah, but Yauch is the one that like made all this great. And then we did this, and then we did that. And Yauch was the guy that was always doing this. Like, it was almost as if they were trying to combine 2 different things at once. Like, I think we would have watched a 2-hour love letter to MCA.
I would have, definitely.
Absolutely. I would have watched a 2-hour retrospective on the history of the Beastie Boys.
Right.
I don't know that they kind of jammed it all
and
together.
hearing how much, Adam Yauch contributed to the band, it really makes sense why they have not performed since he passed away. Like if he was as big a fixture of the band as their stories made him out to be, I don't see how it's possible to go on without him being there.
Oh no, you absolutely can. You absolutely cannot go on.
It's a shame. Like it would be great if they were still making music. I mean, this shows you what a bitch cancer is. Like, how much more could the Beastie Boys have done in the last 8 years if they were still a functioning unit?
I would like to point out to you that, cancer is a bitch, but coronavirus is worse.
Okay.
Right now, there are not U-Hauls parked outside of funeral homes that are leaking spoiled blood from, the back end, the back door, because, and I think we've all been leaking blood out of the back door at some point or another.
Time or two.
But I just don't think that there are unrefrigerated U-Hauls stacked with bodies outside of funeral homes, because cancer is a bitch.
Fair enough. Speaking of coronavirus, we also I watched it. I don't know if you got around to it. The coronavirus special on Netflix. It's about 26 minutes long. Yeah.
Baby, if you tell me to watch something, I fucking watch it.
All right. What did you think of it?
We are farmers. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, who's that guy?
It was narrated by J.D. Salinger. There you go. I was close. I thought that it was a good kind of, for someone who's not watching the news, I think it kind of hit all the issues of what is coronavirus, why is it happening, how do we believe it happened, why is it so dangerous?
Right.
And I think they did a good job of kind of saying, listen, if you're not really paying attention to the news, here are the answers to your questions.
I think it did a good job of saying, all right, here's the information. Here are the things that you shouldn't be panicking about. Here are the things that you should be concerned about, and things you can do to mitigate your risk factors.
Right.
It was, I think one of the most eye-opening things to me is like just the research that goes into on an annual basis, like tracking all of these viruses that bats have, for example, and seeing what could happen if they, manage to make their way over and infect a human. Like there's definitely a lot of work going on behind the scenes to try and keep us safe, which just goes to show you that regardless of all this work, a pandemic can really just kick us in the ass like it has now. And, we need to be more focused, I think less focused on putting money towards defense and more focused on the health of this country and defending against future pandemics.
But don't you believe that the terrorists are going to use this virus against us. We need to have a strong defense. The Blue Angels, Ron, the fucking Blue Angels flew right by.
We're also watching Waco, the new show based off of 2 books on the Branch Davidian siege by the ATF down in Waco, Texas, many, many years ago. We're about 3 episodes, 4 episodes?
We've watched 3 episodes,
Three
yes.
episodes. Somewhat sympathetic to David Koresh and his followers.
Anti-government.
Very anti-government. Making the ATF look like buffoons. Definitely not painting the FBI in a great light, except for the negotiator, since they're using his book as part of the story as well. But a decent watch. I mean, I would still encourage people to watch the actual documentaries on Waco if you want to learn the story. But as far as a sensationalized drama, not too bad.
Yeah. It's entertaining, and I think that, I think it says a lot about the state of this pandemic that a show that came out 2 years ago suddenly is now in the top 10 on Netflix because people are, we have just savage Netflix capabilities of what they are putting out there. I was going to say, while watching the first episode, this feels like a made-for-TV special. And then that's exactly what it is.
What it was.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
John Leguizamo coming in with what I feel is an Emmy award-winning performance.
Really? Well, wouldn't he have gotten it back in 2018 when they first aired it?
Racism, Ron. Fucking racism is the only thing that held John Leguizamo back from the award that he deserved for his performance in Waco, based on a book by Sapphire.
Sapphire?
Remember Precious? Remember the movie Precious?
I never saw the movie Precious.
The point was the fact that the name of the movie was Precious,
Right.
comma, based on a book by Sapphire.
Oh, okay. You're
I don't know who the fuck
more
Sapphire was.
You're more into Precious than I am, apparently.
It was a brutally depressing movie. It is about a overweight African-American teenager in the inner city who is impoverished and is raped by her mother's boyfriend and becomes pregnant by him.
Sounds very uplifting. I think I will pass on that for a while.
She lifts herself above and rises to the top and makes something of herself in the end of the movie.
And becomes Mariah Carey.
I thought she became Precious based on a book by Sapphire.
Like I said, I didn't see the movie. All right. Anything else this week? I think we've said a lot. We've done a lot. We've had some good conversation here. Hopefully everybody out there
actually
enjoyed it.
No. I know you're trying to end it, but we left one thing out that we should get to.
All right.
Kim Jong Un, whatever. The leader of our most honorable Korea, North Korea. Where is he? What is he doing? Is he alive? Is he dead? Ron, quick.
North Korea seems to be saying like, we don't know what you guys are talking about. He's fine. But others are saying, some are saying he's brain dead. Some are saying he's actually dead. No one knows for sure. There was a lot of chatter about it. And then all of our news outlets have kind of gone pretty quiet about it now. So
there's nothing new. There's nothing new to talk about.
Yeah. So I guess we will have to wait and see. I have read a number of articles where his sister seems to be gaining a lot of power, and they feel that she might step up and take over if he is incapacitated or dead. I know how you like your Asian women, Brian.
I love my Asian women in power, in a tyrannical government. My goodness, do I find that hot?
Just don't go to North Korea, Brian. I need you.
Does anybody know? Is she married? Do we know?
I don't know.
Would
But she seems like the kind of person that would have her husband killed off for you.
Oh, I think she would be very upset if I didn't make her come. Like, I'm out in the gulags, chipping rocks and eating them for eating the dirt for food.
All right. That was a little bit more information than I needed, but sure, we'll go with that. All right. Well, anyway, thanks all of you for tuning in. We're going to jump over now to the Patreon, which you can join by going to ronandbrianpodcast.com. You also have all of the links to our social media there and all of the different ways you can listen to the Ron and Brian podcast. So if you want to share us with your friends, doesn't matter what platform they listen to their podcasts on, they will find the link there on the website. God willing, we will get a drink of the week poll up again for next week. And
let's do next week. Drink of the week next week.
And you know what next week is, Brian?
Hold on. May Day.
2-year anniversary of the Ron and Brian podcast. So again, it will be a subdued celebration due to the current world situation. But yes, next week we will be celebrating the 2-year anniversary of this podcast.
It blows my mind that is a reality. This may be the longest relationship I've ever had that I didn't think about giving up, on a daily basis.
Well, I appreciate that. All right,
for you,
we're gonna roll out of here. Hit the Patreon. Hopefully, we get some more subscribers.
Subscribe. Tell your friends. Write a review.
What he said.
Love your friends.
All right, love you, my friend.